My name's Marta, and in this Red Gaming Tech video I am here with a very interesting topic for you today, which is to do with loot boxes. Now of course, they have been quite the hot button topic ever since Star Wars Battlefront 2, but they were of course a controversial topic even before that, and while numerous governments have stepped forward to say that they are investigating to see if new legislation does need to be put into place, and we've had several statements in that regard, we actually now have the first piece of action. Unfortunately, it's kind of wishy-washy and not all that helpful. However, it is actually from the ESRB, who have announced that a new label will be added to games in the US, which is going to inform you ahead of time that it contains in-game purchases. In fact, the label is going to be called in-game purchases. Now, of course, this applies to physical games, but it is also going to apply for downloadable games as well, as the label will also be available, quote, wherever they can be downloaded, and basically will inform you whether or not the game offers the, quote, ability to purchase digital goods or premiums with real-world currency. Now, the wishy-washiness begins by the fact that this label literally will mean that every game within the last couple of years that technically falls under it, because it includes bonus levels, skins, surprise items such as loot boxes, item packs and so on, virtual coins and other forms of in-game currency, as well as subscriptions, season passes and upgrades which might disable ads and that sort of thing. Now, the label does not state the difference between a loot box and a piece of DLC. So, technically, a piece of DLC would fall under this. Now, you might say, okay, that's not really helpful. Why have they decided to do this? And I actually have a bit of a statement on this from the ESRB President, Patricia Vance. Quote, the video game industry is evolving and innovating continually, as is the ESRB rating system. ESRB's goal is to ensure that parents have the most up-to-date and comprehensive tools at their disposal to help them decide which games are appropriate for their children. With the new in-game purchases interactive element coming to physical games, parents will know when a game contains offers for players to purchase additional content. Moreover, we'll be expanding our efforts to educate parents about the controls currently at their disposal to manage in-game spending before their kids press start. Now, to address the DLC concern specifically, Vance said that this is due to the fact that the large majority of parents do not know what a loot box is, and this is actually thanks to a question which was asked by Ars Technica. However, Vance did kind of expand upon this, and she basically said that even when parents were told what a loot box is, she said, quote, we found the primary concern by far is children spending money. It's very important for us not to harp on loot boxes per se, but make sure we're capturing loot boxes, but also other types of purchases. Parents need simple information. We can't overwhelm them with a lot of detail. We need to be clear, concise, and make it easy for them. We have not found that parents are differentiating between a lot of these different mechanics. Now, interestingly, 9 out of the 10 parents interviewed by the ESRB also said that they required their kids to have permission before making any in-game purchases. So, basically, this is giving the parents information that, hey, you might want to keep in mind that your child can spend real money in this game, so you might want to tell them, hey, if it asks you to spend money, make sure you ask me first, okay? But obviously the fact that there's no differentiator between just a piece of DLC and a loot box or a microtransaction, I can understand what they're saying with the fact that, you know, a parent who doesn't game is not going to know the difference, really. They're going to be like, okay, well, they're spending my money, so why do I care what the difference is? But it doesn't really help, really, because this basically means that every game ever is going to have this label, because it includes season passes and stuff as well. Literally any additional content that you can purchase will fall under this label. So it doesn't actually arm the consumer with information, because if every game has this label, then what's the difference? We've just added more work, basically, but we're kind of at the same point that we were previously. Now you might say, okay, but what about the whole argument as to whether or not they're gambling? And, well, she did say, that being Vance, of course, that the ESRB's position against the idea that loot boxes are gambling hasn't changed. And she said, quote, we think loot boxes are a fun way to acquire virtual items for use within the game to personalise your experience. Obviously, there's an element of surprise in loot boxes, just like with baseball trading cards. The ability to complete games without buying loot boxes and the lack of an in-game method of cashing out both cut against the gambling description. She's not wrong. You know, most games do not offer a way to cash your items out directly for money, but it's still gambling because you are gambling for a thing. It is setting off the same reaction in your brain. Your brain does not really know the difference between I'm pulling the lever on this slot machine, I'm getting some coins out the bottom, yay for me, and oh, I'm putting some money into this game. I really want that cool new skin that I saw in the advert the other day. I really want that. I'm getting endorphins based upon this gambling. Like, it's the same response, as it still is gambling. Just because you can't cash out doesn't make it not gambling, at least in my opinion. And as we've seen with the whole CSGO thing, third-party websites very much do allow you to cash out in some circumstances. Now, the ESRB have also launched a new website alongside all this by the name of parentaltools.org, which is basically hoping to give parents information on various parental controls to help manage game use, including money and all that sort of thing. So they are trying to arm them with more information, and that's good, but again, I don't think this label is particularly helpful. I can understand why they felt that a parent is not going to really know the difference between a DLC and a loot box or a microtransaction if they don't game. Obviously, if they game, they're going to be like, alright, cool, I understand. But they felt like, hey, we don't want to overwhelm them with a load of information, and even when we explained to them this is what a loot box is, they more cared about whether or not their child can spend their credit card or hard-earned, work money or whatever, which is fair enough, but I'm just saying that this has such a broad sweep that it doesn't really help. It basically just means that every game is going to have this label now, pretty much, with very few exceptions. So it doesn't really arm the consumer with information, because literally every game is going to have this, as I already said. So it looks like ESRB are not changing their tune anytime soon as to whether or not loot boxes are gambling. They're still sticking to the fact that they aren't. They have kind of responded to the concerns about the psychological effects that loot boxes can have on people, but the ESRB, or Vance in particular, said, quote, they have been unable to find any evidence that children specifically have been impacted by loot boxes or leading to some sort of tendency towards gambling. We really truly don't know of any evidence supporting these claims. Which is fair enough, but I do think more research and more investigation is warranted, and I do think a label specifically for loot boxes is needed, at least in my opinion, because this label is like the least helpful thing ever. It's like, it looks good on the surface, and then you read it, and then you realise, hey, this is going to be like really kind of weak. So it's a start. I mean, I'm not saying, hey, you shouldn't be doing anything at all. It's a beginning point. Perhaps we can refine it and get it more specific later on down the line. Maybe we can actually get it to the point where it's giving the customer real information. But at the moment, it's not that great, because, again, it includes a bunch of stuff that aren't really the issue. Like, yeah, I'm not saying it's bad for a parent to know, hey, your child can buy DLC for this particular game. That is important to know, because obviously you should know, hey, as a parent, you want to say to your child, look, if it says to you about money, make sure you ask me first. That's fair enough. However, in terms of loot boxes, it doesn't really help. So, yeah. Not bad per se, I just don't think it's good enough. I think it needs to be more specific, and it needs to say, hey, gambling mechanics or something. But obviously, I don't think it's gambling, so that's not going to happen. Anyway, that is me done for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.